So Peggy, what does feminism mean to you?
Well, feminism is simply equality in every way, and being able to do what you want to do in society without restrictions of roles and limits.
So do you think there is a need for feminism in the 21st century?
Absolutely. I think we've made a lot of progress in the Western world, but now we're at really the most difficult part, I think, because it's much easier to change laws and rules than it is to change attitudes and very subtle innuendos that exist and really are the strongest part of feminism, anti-feminism, I should say. Of course, in other parts of the world, there's a great need for some of the basics, laws and rules that we've already done. And there's a continual need, I believe, for we in the Western world to help women in those countries that are where they are still very oppressed. Feminism is, I think, something that is so important to not only to women but to the whole structure of society. I think that men's roles have to change too in order to be able to complete the feminist revolution that has to occur.
What changes do you see are necessary in men's roles?
Well, I think they also have to get more freedom. They have to be less stereotyped and put in niches so that they are also free to take on more so-called feminine functions and to help and to not necessarily require women to do all the roles that women have traditionally done, but to be able to do some of them themselves. So it's a parallel need, and it's something one can't happen without the other.
Okay. What role do you see that art has in engaging this conversation?
Well, art, of course, has always had a huge role in helping people look at things in new ways. I think that being able to capture some of the problems and some of the issues in an artistic way so that people can look at it and have their focal point aimed right at it is enormously huge part of the whole thing. It just can't be overestimated. Artists have traditionally been on the very edge of revolution. They are the ones that picture the oppressions and picture the possibilities.
So what drives you to make your art?
I'm not so noble because I'm sort of past the age where I'm a revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
And my art now is done simply for the sheer pleasure of doing it. I still am trying to find new ways of looking at things, and I always try to have something funny in it, a sense of humor or a little bit of irony or something. Most of my art that I have done so far has just a little twitch, a little turn in it, and I think that's where I'm going to be. I've always been somebody that uses humor. Yeah.
Using humor, what does it do within the art? Does it soften the message? Does it, what does it do for the interaction between you and the audience?
Well, I think it makes fun of things in a way. Mm-hmm. I tend to be ironic. I tend to, for example, not too long ago I finished a very large picture of a bouquet of broccoli in a beautiful golden vase, with the radiation behind it, like in the holy pictures. And
yeah.
I just got a great charge out of doing that. I've always admired artists who are able to cross new frontiers in how to paint, how to make, how to sculpt, what they're showing. Which means that most artists who have lasted today in reputation are in that category. But Picasso is somebody I just love his work. And the other thing, he crosses lines, he uses all kinds of media it doesn't matter. He was creative right down at the tips of his toes, and it didn't matter whether he was walking on a sidewalk or painting. He applied that creativity to it. And I think that is something that is so admirable, and it's inspiring just to think of his approach to life. There's also an artist. I wrote a book about an artist named Janet Mitchell. All my academic training and background is in writing. She was an Alberta artist who I admired enormously because she always loved art. She never had any formal training. She worked for the tax department in Calgary for 30 years. Finally, when she retired about the age of 50, just over 50, she was able to paint full-time in the basement of her tiny little house in a very old neighborhood in Calgary. And she had two lines of work. She had what she called pot boilers. They were the more realistic ones of identifiable places in Alberta that people would buy. Mm-hmm. Then she had her real ones, she called. And they were flights of fantasy like you wouldn't believe. They were birds and people flying and just all kinds of wonderful things happening. And they were the kinds of paintings, she would say herself, she didn't know what was in them until she stopped painting, because things would just appear.
So what would you say your vision is as a woman artist in the 21st century? What would you like to see for all of us?
For all of us?
Well, for women artists, and then possibly for the globe and how it is evolving. I know it's a big question.
It is a big question. I think for women artists, it would be wonderful if life could be made a little easier mm-hmm. for women artists in terms of finances and looking after the basic needs of life. Right now, many artists, male and female, have to undergo quite a hard life in order to get to the point where they might or might not start making money with their work. It also means, like my friend Janet Mitchell, that they have to be very aware of what will sell as opposed to what they would like to paint. Quite often they're not the same thing. And I think it's what they would like to paint, which is where the real art is. It would be nice if it were easier to get a good working studio. It would be nice if there was more support.
What would you say are your challenges as an artist?
My challenges are my age, which I believe is also my asset because I have a lot of experience in many things, all of which I feel I apply to the work I do all the time. Mm-hmm. It gives me a maturity of looking at things and a confidence to take my point of view. But my time is limited, my energy is limited, and I'm not a young person, so I have to keep myself in shape, and I have to recognize my limitations, and I have to be grateful for whatever I can do.
But is there a continuation of the creative process or the writing process in your painting process? I
do tend to have words associated sometimes with my paintings. If not actually in the paintings, then they're certainly associated with them. Mm-hmm. Words are important to me, and I do use them in my thinking.